I would like to present the boxed-in theory. It may also be called backed-in, as in backed into a corner. I prefer boxed-in as it provides an image of someone being closed into a box and surrounded by nothing but walls. The theory is relatively simple, but the consequences can be grave. The theory is that during separation, morals may be thrown out the door because of the need to win over the other parent. It becomes a war where they plan to take no prisoners. For both parents, the whole playing field changes. Communication, logic, negotiation, compromise are lost to the sea of emotion which crashes like a wave upon them. The difference in sexes cannot be ignored. Yes, it's not always the case, but for this to happen, it is usually a combination of the father being logic and solution-based, where the mother bases her decisions on feelings and her emotions become the weapon. In this new game, what were sweet memories now become a bitter pill their husband forced her to swallow. The father has exhausted his attempts at communication with the wife, and every argument is met with an unloading of emotional abuse which solves nothing for him. Yet it often makes her feel better for venting and avoiding communication. As he sees things falling apart for the children, he becomes protective and begins to intervene in an authoritative manner, only when it is absolutely essential to protect the children's welfare. The consequence is the mother assuming the role of the innocent victim. Everything he now does to open lines of communication is transformed into control, manipulation, and his narcissistic character. He is powerless, isolated, and controlled by her. Closing off communication is the first wall built. Once the innocent victim is established, the children become pawns in the strategic plan. She knows he is protective of the children. She sees he usually steps in only when he is unhappy with their treatment, even if that stepping in is because they're being spoiled or them ruling the mother. She sees his concern for the children is now his weakness. It's easy now he's frustrated to use his frustration to alienate him from the children. The mother can use the children's maternal instinct to trust her and her sweet disposition. She knows making them happy, giving in to their demands, the children becoming needy, precious, fragile, demanding brats can annoy the father, and she uses it to slowly break their ties to him. He becomes harsh, distant, isolated, and it creeps into his everyday life. The second wall is being built between him and his children. Intimidation, control, and threats come into play. Now she wants him to hit her. She may accuse him of rape, wanting sex, being demanding, mistreating, or potentially threatening to say he abused the children. She is actually seeking to intimidate him. And if she cracks him and he abuses or is physically violent towards her, she will exploit it to the maximum advantage. Once she lures him to do something abusive, her subconscious kicks in. Empathy is her temporary weakness. She feels bad for him, the one that hurt her, because she knows she had been provoking a response for a long time, and any normal person would have cracked in these circumstances. Worse, if she has left him, she finds her power and control over him is lost. She wants the feeling of power and being like a god commanding his every move. If she returns, her power will be even stronger with his guilt of taking her bait. And she did the work to achieve it. Why shouldn't she enjoy seeing him squirm? The potential power over him seduces her, and she returns to collect her bounty. He sees her returning as a signal that she might engage, communicate, and fix this by working together. His life is becoming a living hell. This wall is made of glass. He sees the beautiful outside world of being in a loving relationship through it. But he will never get there. Like a bird flying into the reflection from a window, he hits the glass time and time again, thinking it's real, but he cannot get there. It is always going to be an illusion. The next wall is already built, but he goes to them thinking they're demolition experts. Little does he know, expectations are not what they seem. Marriage counselling, normal therapists, and even worse, domestic violence support services will assume the problem lies with the man and he needs interventions to control his anger. The beast has come out in the man and the only solution is to tame the beast within. All the time the mother is left unquestioned, and even the thought of questioning a woman brings a shiver to the spine of any therapist. The consequences of a simple inquiry could become sexist, misogynistic, and seen as victim blaming. Even if he has done absolutely nothing violent, their mission is to dig until they strike some small piece of evidence to make him question himself. He needs reprogramming to cast out his demons. In these situations, it is the man who is the victim. He may have been coerced, intimidated, alienated, threatened, provoked, lied about, abused, and often subject to domestic violence. But everyone is taught to believe that domestic violence can't happen to a man. He saw the wall was built and expected them to help knock it down. That was never the case. He sees it clearly now. When he went to them for help, they were actually looking for more bricks to make it bigger. They got more bricks from him to build their wall even bigger now and gave him nothing. He feels deserted. The wall is insurmountable now. He thinks he'll seek a wall to protect himself. He reaches out to the police to have them intervene, whether it be to obtain access to his children, investigate false allegations, or stop domestic violence against him. The police don't know what to do. They have no procedures to deal with men like they do to deal with women. If he expects them to listen to his side in relation to false allegations, improper DVOs, or breaches, they have already assumed it's him. The police's safe bet is to assume it's a man who is always at fault for everything. They say he's guilty, but he may not be. They pass it on to the family courts to figure out. The police were no help in providing a wall of protection for him. Every move he has made has been met with a wall to box him in, and he's in a living hell. He needs help. The only hope now is for the family court to see what is going on and break those walls apart. Weeks, months, and years go by as he watches his children grow further from him. He sees the poison circulating through his innocent children, and they begin to hate their father for protecting them and acting in their best interests. He struggles on, holding hope that the light he sees through the lid will provide him a fair hearing and deal appropriately with those who have exploited the system. As he engages the family law system, he finds men have little chance of a fair hearing. His own lawyers are even preparing him for a loss. Even if he is seen as a better parent, the judge will tend to leave them with the mother as she has them established in her life. Somehow, judges find it is better to leave them in a bad situation than bother to move them to a better situation where both parents can share custody and the children experience a relatively normal life. This wall is expensive. It's made of gold and has cost him everything. Judges have so many excuses for making a bad judgment. They had to follow precedents. It is too late to uproot the children. The father has no supporting evidence. He should act like a father and support his children. Why wasn't the father involved in their lives? If he saw the children were being mistreated, he's a man, he could have stood up to her. If he did stand up to her, then he would have been seen as a violent father. Now he's boxed in by the legal system. The painful excuses the judge might deliver does nothing more than shatter a father's heart who placed all his hope in obtaining a fair hearing. The lid to the box closes. Darkness surrounds him. He no longer knows which way is up or down. Boxed in, there is no way out. The father is destroyed, a shadow of his former self. There are no options left for him. Society has placed him in a box, and there he will stay. For an innocent man trying to protect his children, this has exhausted all options. Yes, this is a male problem, as both the legal system and family law system are biased towards women. Even if a man takes his children for their own protection, the mother can usually get them back with the support of a biased system. To be boxed in, you must be to the greater part genuinely innocent. If a man who has done something significantly wrong during their relationship finds they are boxed in their mind they will usually recall those bad things and rationalise that this is a consequence of what they did. This stops them from being mentally boxed in. Men rationalising this way is a benefit for women. It would be a different story if men were treated like women, as most women are taught. Whatever they do, it's not their fault. They're innocent and trying to live a drama-free life. The fact that someone says they're innocent does not mean they are. Many women know this. When they do things like degrade, abuse, ridicule, provoke, and the like, support workers will rationalise it by saying something like, "Well, he is trying to control you. No wonder you acted that way. It's not your fault. Remember, you're the victim. Don't listen to him when he says you are causing this." The promotion of a lack of responsibility for women is not doing them justice. Strong women own their mistakes. Acknowledging them is the only way to fix them. There have been numerous studies where women have been found in the majority of cases to be the initiator of violence. Unfortunately, both the system and society believe that men are impervious to the abuse a woman dishes out. Sadly, the good man who tolerates this will rarely be recognised for his restraint. So the boxed-in theory is when an innocent man does all the right things, yet finds every option for fair treatment is a dead end, just because he's a man. In our example, this person has tried communicating with his partner to resolve sharing access to the children. He has been alienated by the mother from the children by positioning him as the mean father. He has to show extraordinary control against being intimidated, provoked, false allegations meant to enrage him, sometimes asked to hit her, and watch on as his children are used to alienate him as a father. He seeks help from support services, experts who assume he's guilty and needs interventions to control his anger. Desperation takes him to ask police for help, but none is offered. If they are physically separated, it is likely that the mother has the children and is controlling access. Even when she agrees to some visitation, change of mind, children's activities, and a plethora of excuses come out to be used to deny the father access. In his last desperate attempt, he pursues things in the family law system, only to find they prepare him for unfairness, and the only thing he has gained is an empty bank account. For the innocent man who has exhausted all options, he has few alternatives. One is to forget his children and regather the mess which is his life, or continue to fight. In online forums, courts, and by all different means, there are fathers and also mothers who are continuing to fight to stop parents being alienated from their children. This man has showed courage in the face of abuse, alienation, coercion, discrimination, and stood tall for his children. With no hope left, the broken father struggles. If he's lucky, people around him might offer some support. For many fathers, the way society has treated them, combined with the heartbreak, is too much. Suicide is common. Unfortunately, for some, having the mother continue their campaign against them and using the kids as pawns means the innocent and good father could be driven to consider drastic measures to rescue their children from what they see as long-term abuse. Critically, the better, the more moral and innocent the man is, the more at risk they are. For the man who has endured hell, did the right thing by women by resisting engaging in the same type of abuse as they have received, tolerated therapists, counsellors and domestic violence support, assuming he was the violent perpetrator, has trusted in the moral and legal system to treat them and their children's interests fairly. He may have moved out of the family home on experts' advice that a judge will see this as a good father getting away from the abuse, only to find it was untrue and placed him in a worse position. Amongst all the promises that a good father will be treated fairly and his good behaviour shall be recognised, after believing in experts, doing good and protecting his children's interests, he finds it is all an illusion, and he has been deceived. He feels the world has deserted him and his children. The good man feels the worst pain of injustice, and the great father doesn't give up on his children. It is critical that we change the system to one that is fair, so men are not being boxed in. The family law system has a history of cases where mothers have been found guilty of making false allegations about the father, and the penalties have been nothing more than a slap on the wrist. It's been acknowledged in official government reports that cases of perjury are not dealt with appropriately. The current system produces more losers than winners. Children are the most innocent. Fathers suffer from injustice, and in many cases, when the mother thinks she has got all she wants, she finds it nothing like she imagined. Complaining of exhaustion, wanting more money, wanting the children to behave how she wants. Some suicide as they struggle to cope with the situation they fought to achieve. Let's stop boxing men in, protect the children, and help mothers see past the emotions of destroying the father. Fairness will produce an environment where all can be winners if they embrace separation and move forward with cooperation for the children and for themselves.